The station alarm had been screaming for 11 seconds. 11 seconds since the predator cub broke free from the containment bay. 11 seconds since every alien on Varen Station pressed themselves against walls, behind consoles, under tables. 11 seconds of pure biological terror. And then there was Diplomat Mara Chen. She didn't run. She didn't freeze. She just tilted her head and said 4 words that no translator in the galaxy was prepared for. Varen Station was the kind of place that existed only because someone had decided the edge of known space needed a middleman. 3 species operated it, 17 passed through it, and exactly 1 human called it her office. Diplomat Mara Chen had been stationed on Varen for 8 months. 8 months of translation disputes, docking fee arguments, and cargo inspections that somehow always ended in someone threatening to file a grievance with the Galactic Council. She had handled all of it, calmly, methodically, with the quiet patience of someone who had once spent 6 hours negotiating over a single crate of misclassified fertilizer and won. The Veth crew respected her. The Drawley tolerated her. Commander Reth, a 7-foot Kraven with 4 arms and the permanent expression of someone deeply inconvenienced by the universe, had once been overheard telling his lieutenant that the human was, and this was a direct quote, disturbingly difficult to unsettle. That morning, Mara had arrived at the diplomatic bay with a warm drink she called coffee, a datapad full of pending complaints, and absolutely no idea that in 4 hours, she would become the most talked about human in the outer sectors. None of them did, because nobody had checked the containment seals on Bay 7. The alarm didn't build. It didn't warn. It simply exploded into existence at full volume, flooding every corridor of Varen Station with a sound that the Veth translated as imminent dissolution, and the Drawley recognized as run now, ask later. In the command center, Commander Reth was on his feet before the second pulse. "Report," he said. His voice was flat, controlled. But his secondary arms, the ones he couldn't always manage consciously, had already moved to a defensive posture. "Base 7, his lieutenant said. And the word landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water. "Containment seal failure. The Vorkai cub is loose." Silence. Not the comfortable kind. A Vorkai, even a juvenile, was not a creature that appeared on the station's approved manifest. It was not a creature that was supposed to be on any civilian station. It was the apex predator of 3 separate ecosystems, possessed of 6 limbs, a hide that deflected standard stun pulses, and an instinct so tuned to fear that it could locate prey by the chemical signature of adrenaline alone. Which meant that every crew member now flooding the corridor with terror was, in biological terms, ringing the dinner bell. "Lock down all sections," Reth ordered. "Get everyone behind sealed doors. Nobody moves until..." That was when his lieutenant pointed at the security feed. Mara Chen was already in the corridor. She had her coffee in one hand. She was not running. The Vorkai cub rounded the corner at the far end of Corridor 9, doing what all Vorkai did when they were loose and disoriented. It screamed. Not a roar, a scream. High, sharp, and wrong in a way that made every biological alarm in every living body on the station fire at once. 3 Veth technicians hit the floor. A Drawley cargo handler threw himself through the nearest doorway. A maintenance bot, not even alive, reversed its wheels and retreated. The cub was small, barely the size of a large earth dog, if that dog had extra legs, bone-white claws, and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. It was terrified. It was fast, and it was running directly toward the one warm body still standing in the open corridor. Mara Chen watched it come. She tilted her head. Later, when Commander Reth reviewed the security footage 17 times, he would try to identify the exact moment she made a decision. He never could. Because it didn't look like a decision. It looked like instinct. She crouched down. Slowly. Deliberately. The cub skidded to a stop 3 meters away, claws sparking against the metal floor. It screamed again, shorter this time. Uncertain. Mara didn't flinch. She set her coffee down on the floor beside her. She held out one open hand. And she spoke. Not to the station. Not to the crew watching in frozen horror from sealed doorways. She spoke.
She spoke to the cub. "Hey," she said softly. "It's okay. You're scared, aren't you?" The cub did not attack. This was, according to every biological profile in the Galactic Council's database, impossible. A disoriented Vorkai juvenile in an unfamiliar environment, surrounded by the chemical signatures of mass fear, with a lone prey animal crouched directly in front of it, the outcome was not supposed to be negotiable. And yet, the cub's screaming stopped. Its 6 legs shifted, weight redistributing from attack posture to something else, something smaller. Its mirror eyes stayed fixed on the human's open hand. In the command center, nobody breathed. Commander Reth had lived through 3 border conflicts, 2 hull breaches, and 1 incident involving a Drawley trade dispute that had lasted 19 days and ended with someone setting fire to a cargo manifest. He had never once considered himself to be a creature capable of being surprised. He was surprised. "What is she doing?" his lieutenant whispered. Reth did not answer. He did not have one. On the screen, Mara Chen had not moved. Her hand was still extended. Her voice carried through the corridor sensors, soft and steady.
"Did you not have lunch?"
4 words. Nobody moved for a long time. It was not a tactical decision. It was not a coordinated response. It was simply that every conscious being on Varen Station had encountered something their nervous systems had no framework for, and were waiting for the universe to clarify its position. The Veth technicians, still flat on the floor, had begun exchanging looks. The kind of looks that meant, "Are you seeing this?" without any of them willing to be the one to say it out loud. In Bay 4, a Drawley cargo handler who had thrown himself behind a sealed door was watching through the narrow observation strip, his 4 eyes tracking every movement in the corridor with an expression that his species reserved for events that required completely rewriting a previously held belief. Commander Reth had stopped trying to formulate a response plan. He was simply watching. On the security feed, Mara Chen had sat down fully on the corridor floor, cross-legged. Her coffee, somehow still upright, was beside her knee. The Vorkai cub had arranged itself across her lap in a configuration that should not have been physically comfortable for either of them, and appeared, by all available evidence, to be asleep.
"She's..." his lieutenant began. "Yes," said Reth. "The cub is..." "Yes." "Should we..." "No," said Reth. "We are not going to interrupt that." He said it with the full authority of his rank. He also said it very quietly, just in case. He typed for a while. He deleted it. He typed again. In the end, the official incident report for the Vorkai containment breach on Varen Station, stardate 7.441, read as follows. Containment seal failure, Bay 7. Vorkai juvenile loose in Corridor 9 for approximately 47 minutes. Situation resolved by Diplomat M. Chen. Method, unknown. Outcome, stable. No injuries. Recommend renewing containment seal inspection protocols. He saved it. Then he opened a second document, a private one, not filed with anyone, and wrote one additional line. She asked if it was hungry. He stared at it. Then he closed the document, folded all four arms, and looked out at the stars for a very long time.
That afternoon, Varen Station's mess hall was quieter than usual. Not empty, just thinking. Word had spread, as it always does on a station with one corridor and 17 species, and by dinner, the story had already grown beyond what the security footage actually showed. In some versions, the cub had been fully grown. In others, Mara had been unarmed, which was true, but also alone and surrounded, which was somewhat less true. In all of them, she had not run. A young Veth technician named Saval, who had been one of the ones on the floor in Corridor 9, found herself sitting 2 tables away from the human diplomat and spent the entire meal trying to find an excuse to say something. She finally settled on the truth. I don't understand. How were you not afraid? Meryl looked up from her datapad, considered the question seriously, the way she considered everything. I was afraid, she said.
Sival stared. Then why didn't you run? Mara was quiet for a moment. Because it was more scared than I was, she said. And something that's scared, something that's small and that lost, it doesn't need a threat. It needs someone to just stay. Sival thought about that for a long time. Later, she would tell the story to her bunkmate, who would tell it to a cargo hauler passing through on a trade run, who would carry it to 4 more stations before the month was out. And always, the part that stuck, the part that nobody could quite explain, but everyone remembered, was that. Something that's scared doesn't need a threat. It needs someone to stay. Commander Reth, eating alone at the far end of the mess hall as he always did, heard every word.
He said nothing.
But he did not delete that private document. And the next morning, when he passed Diplomat Chen in the corridor, he stopped, looked at her for a long moment, with the unreadable expression of a species that had been apex predators for 6,000 years, and gave her a slow, deliberate nod. The kind his people only gave to other apex predators. Mara Chen nodded back, sipped her coffee, and continued on her way. On Varen Station, in the edge of known space, the universe quietly updated its records. Humans, it noted, did not run from things that were afraid. It was still trying to decide if that made them brave or something else entirely.